All right, so when you're looking at these Google images of the hero's journey, just take a look at the first few steps. I'm kind of rounding these out here. You got the normal world, the call to action, the refusal of the call, all the way up until about the mentor. What's really going on there? If we were to really simplify this, it's just you have these stories of a normal person living in a normal town. And what starts to happen, there becomes a hostile host. So the child, the townsfolk, the normal person is living their life and everything's fine. What's going on underneath the scenes is that they're very dependent on the host. They're dependent on their friends, their family, their boss, the city they live in, the country they live in. There's all these little dependencies that they have that they're just kind of taking for granted and they're not thinking about them. And what happens is that outside ordinary world becomes threatened, or it starts crashing down, or there's massive tidal waves, or an enemy is destroying it, or in reality, like the world we live in, it just becomes obsolete. Hey, we don't need your job anymore. Hey, your parents died. And all of a sudden, you realize how dependent on this outside world that has now become hostile or dying or having a problem that you really are. And that is now shaking the hero awake and starting this journey. Joseph Campbell described the person at the beginning of the hero's journey as a man of self-achieved submission. It really kind of paints a picture that the person starting on their hero's journey is not really a grown-up. They're not a hero in any way, shape, or form. They're more of a child. And they're kind of unconsciously dependent on the people around them, the town around them, their job, etc., whatever. And they don't realize it until all that's taken away. They've taken the easy way in life because that's what everybody does. Why push yourself to be responsible in everything and be a fully grown adult if you've never gone through that kind of pressure? It's just not going to happen. The beginning of the hero's journey, it's actually a very rare event. You're not going to stumble into a hero's journey. It's not going to just, like the worst place you could be is where life is going great. Your friends, your family, they love you, you got a great job. Like, enjoy that point in time. That's part of growing up. That's part of life. But like, there's an opposite side to that summertime. There will eventually be in life a winter where all of those wonderful things are going to eventually come crashing down. They're going to turn against you. And that is then the chance to start the hero's journey. And that doesn't mean everybody starts the hero's journey that gets put in a bad situation. For most of us, as the world comes crashing down several times throughout life, we resist the call. That's a big part in the story. And it takes a few go-rounds until you finally have the courage to go, all right, I need to actually grow up and address these areas so I'm not continually stuck on this dependent loop. And we'll get into this in the next couple of videos or so, but like the mentor and the new friends, tools, and allies are a must because you are the one that kind of got yourself into this problem. You're not going to be able to get yourself out of it. You've got to have a new way of thinking and have a new group of friends that start pointing you in a new direction. Otherwise, you just go back around, right? A couple of simple examples. In The Matrix, you have Neo realizing that the host that was supporting him the first 20 years of his life, everything was nice, everything was fine, is actually kind of a hostile host. And he's realizing that if he stays dependent upon his host, he's not going to be able to reach his full potential. He's going to be a man of self-achieved submission. He's going to be taking the easy way out and letting the host, letting the Matrix, letting the computer programs run everything for him and make all the decisions for him, and he's just going along with it. He's just staying a normal townsfolk. A modern-day example of this is you hear stories that go something like this. A guy that had a great tech job, everything was going well, he's taking care of his family, then of course he gets fired because they're outsourcing, they don't need that department anymore. So he kind of wanders around trying to figure out what to do, take care of his family. He's in his 30s, 40s, 50s, ends up picking up a job at Uber, right? Then everything's going fine, he's now living in an apartment, he's taking care of his family, he's working at Uber, okay, not so bad. And then randomly gets some customer that's drunk and then files a complaint with Uber that he was drunk. When he caught it all on video, he wasn't drunk. Everything was fine, right, on his end. But he was just accused of driving drunk by some drunk customer, right? Just some bullshit. Uber gets the complaint and sees the word drunk and sees his name and just terminates his account in 30 minutes. It's kind of why these kind of things make the news, because the point is somebody gets unfairly fired. So this is an example of these really horrible, bad situations where you can be doing everything right, playing by the rules, doing everything the system tells you, and then it's just going to screw you over out of nowhere. But the hero's journey is where it's one thing after another, whether it's fair or unfair, that the host, the society, your job, your family, your friends, your religion, your worldview, these larger things that you're standing on and just taking for granted all of a sudden turn on you. For a lot of us, the details could be very different. It could be a relationship that sends you into a spiral, or getting fired that sends you into a spiral, or whatever. The point is you finally reach this point in life where you realize the very ground I'm standing on is now hostile. There is no more safe place. I have nowhere else to go. That is then what starts the hero's journey, because that's the truth. You can't solve these deeper problems with the external tools you have in town anymore, because the town has changed. And you can't solve these problems in yourself because you are not enough, because you're still a child dependent on things, which is why this whole problem is here to begin with. That's then starts the hero's journey of not necessarily finding a better land, because remember, the hero comes all the way back around to their homeland. It's that the hero realizes there's a whole nother side and dimension to them that they can actually use to engage reality and win. Now, the hostile world, that's only half the problem. The other half of the problem is how intensely hostile the townsfolk is, the person is, the child is. And the Thor movie, it really gives a good insight of how bad we really are as normal townsfolk, as children. Again, we all start off in this stage like you have to be a child, you have to be dependent on your parents, you have to be dependent on society, and, milk that as long as you can. Teenagers, 20s, 30s, 40s, get away with as much as you can. Eventually, the world's going to come crashing down, and you're going to be forced to grow up and be the adult that is now the giver rather than the taker, or suffer as a never-ending child, right? In the Thor movie, you really see a good insight of how tantrumy Thor was before he really had his conversion. He was about to be given the kingship, and his dad, the king, was like, I don't know if this guy's ready. And then right before he becomes king, there's some problems, and you see how young Thor reacts, and he reacts as a tantruming child. And that's when his dad, the king, goes, okay, you are not ready. And he kicks him out of the kingdom and sends him off on his own hero's journey. It forces him to transform or die. But the point is, really looking at the tantruming Thor. That's who we are. And you can't see it. You can't see yourself as a tantruming child, crybaby, attacking everyone around you to get your way. I can't see myself doing it, but you got to trust the math. Hey, if everyone goes through this process, this is kind of like the hero's journey going, look, here's an eternal story that applies to all of us. And we're using it to kind of reflect and see ourselves. So knowing that, yes, it's horrible that the bad situations that happen to you, all these bad things are happening, that's great, that's true, but there's another side of it, and it's the more important side of it. It's that we are starting off as dependent, tantruming children that are unconsciously not doing things because we're not getting our way, or passive-aggressively sabotaging things because we're not getting our way, and we're not realizing we're doing it, just like Thor doesn't realize he's doing it. And that's what we'll cover on the next video, is the depths of how much we are being like everybody else and tantruming because we're not getting our way. And then what does it really look like at the end of this journey to become more of the grown-up, the king, the queen, the hero, where that person transforms their identity from, rather than kind of a tantruming taker, to a person who is fulfilled and abundant and is now a servant and a giver.